would be in the area of export controls, which we have done some work on here at Pacific Forum, and also in terms of South Korea's ability to impact other countries and to actually influence them to take a more proactive or firmer stance on certain things that have perhaps contributed toward North Korea's acquisition of things that they should not have, be given access to. Was that along the lines that you meant, or were you thinking more along the lines of South Korea is expanding its diplomatic profile because, yeah, just because?
It's breaking. Your voice are cracking, Rob. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you thinking about maritime security as a means of stopping North Korea's illicit trade and acquisition of technology?
Uh, Not the on the trade side, because maritime diplomacy sometimes leads to the trade influence, which is but instead of just the maritime diplomacy, so maritime diplomacy also includes the alliance part. So in to some extent, yes, it will lead, and the trade impact will be done when the not only to the North Korea, that one who is saying that the wholesome idea of the trade that will be leading to the part will not be exceeding to the area. That's why I would say I would refer to that North Korea's trade would impact, but on the lesser side, the more impact would be on their once the nuclear agenda and the framework will be framed by the South Korea. So it's on the peace and security side of the South Korea, how they are taking ahead, not only to the maritime. Maritime could be the one aspect, but there are other aspects too, which impact the supply chains from for the South Korea.
Okay. So, all right. Do you see the economic integration piece to be important for stopping North Korea's nuclear program from advancing, or does it have a separate purpose?
I prefer that sometimes or the other, the economic concept of from the South Korea, that would really impact, because on one hand, when we talk about these aspects, uh, so technically the everyone wants to be the economic dependent independent, and the superpower because of the economy. So yeah. Yes, on one extent, it will call upon. You are freezed. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So maybe I can. If it's freezing, then I can close my window for the video operations. Yeah. So that's the news that so for the economy part, if one can be considered into the area where we can say that economy can be impacted only on the segment for the North Korea's arsenal, then I think that
Mhm.
yes, nuclear technology could be the one and the most powerful one. So somewhat or the other, it is a yes. It will impact the economy segment and economic instability that can be considered, because somewhat or the
Mhm.
other, if North Korea will take over the nuclear power, then definitely South Korea will be considered into the threat.
Mhm. Okay. All right. At one point in the proposal, you talk about the Korean model.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you consider South Korea to be a model for other countries in Asia?
Yes, because there are few perspectives and the areas that South Korea has considered into the model, because a few
Mhm.
steps that South Korea has taken into the consideration in regards to the peace building, and in regards to their transformation and normalization of how to handle these kind of situations, regardless of the threats that has been persuaded from the around the circulation of the regions. That's how I
Hmm.
consider that South Korea could also be considered into a model, because there are a few steps which South Korea has taken, which other countries in the Asia should also be considered.
Mm. Okay. All right. A model for middle powers, I
Yes.
presume.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. I guess there is the potential for examining how a country that's a middle power would adapt to the uh, adaptive security climate is
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to be resolved, and how it can diversify, I suppose. Those are areas where it could potentially be worthwhile. But otherwise, another thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned some kinds of sources that
Mm-hmm.
you would like to use for this,
Mm-hmm.
uh, such as, let's see here. I think there was a combination of,
You are talking about the qualitative approach.
yes.
Okay, yes. I talked about the qualitative approach more because it's more of a theoretical background that we really have to get into, and because it's more on the policy analysis and the comparison of the segments, how the other countries are doing, how the South Korea can be the model, and what are the strategies that South Korea could also follow, and
Mm-hmm.
the research part that is already in the market, which is about the uh, public articles and the rest, and the policy briefs as well, including the strategy itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked about the expert interviews, which I considered into the one of the most important aspect, because somewhat the other interviews with the uh, qualified actors, or maybe the, like, there are different stakeholders who are already into there, then this will give the weightage to the entire the whole paper and the project, and that's how it will be taken into consideration of the methodology.
Okay. What do you, or are there specific people you're looking at for your interviews?
So basically, the retired officers could be the one who are from the maritime diplomacy, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would can consider about the those who are the nuclear expert, and who can take into the consideration, for example, the IAEA personnel who are part of the nuclear disarmament and the nuclear armament, and those people are the expert from the IAEA, and there are a few more from the officers and the other sectors who are from the civil society, who can talk more a little bit on the economic side. So mostly the journalist or someone who are the expert in those segment as well from the supply chain. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's from the Asia and the US as well, because it also considered into the US as the nodal uh, country to talk upon. So yes, these are the areas that I am thinking of.
Okay. I see.
So the whole paper will have the security dynamics, and will also consider more on the democratization of how South Korea will taking a lead on the diplomacy and the security, and how it is balancing the security and diplomacy, promoting the stability of FOIP. But on a whole, I would prefer that the economic could also be impacted because of that, and so is the nuclear. So there are few segments
Mhm.
for the nuclear and the economy, but the wholesome idea is to analyze, and the wholesome crux is to analyze the interoperability and technologically driven security of South Korea, and how they are approaching to the middle power. So that's the whole idea for it.
Okay. All right. Okay. I might be able to suggest some people, especially in the U.S., maybe some from Korea as well, um, along the way. But in terms of for the for your research question, I think yeah, that explanation of how these things lead to one another is probably something to try to explain because yeah, the I can think of some ways that North Korean nuclear proliferation, North Korean, the advancements in its weapons program could be could motivate South Korea to deepen its cooperation with the rest of the region. But that's something that would have to be clearly explained so that it doesn't sound like two topics kind of forced together. So that's something that worth explaining at the beginning. Another thing I would suggest is if you can come up with examples of other middle powers, I suppose, that you think would really benefit from this example.
These middle powers examples, such as, are you talking about India that I should consider, or
That's a possibility, certainly, but I was just wondering if there are others
yeah, okay,
that you would think of. Mhm.
okay. I'll take a note on that.
Okay.
And
All right.
just one quick question: that should I also like, this is the very vast topic, and where you are I'm adding the nuclear part as well, and a part of this economy and the wholesome idea of the maritime diplomacy and security. So do you
Mhm.
think that the China's gray zone warfare could also be considered into one of the key question to deal with the maritime diplomacy, that could also be added? Otherwise it will be a very elongated paper. But do you think that the China's gray zone operations could also be into the, should be added into this?
Um, I think this is probably. I think you touch on a lot of things
Yes.
as is. So I think that this is you touch on enough things.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The only thing I would also suggest is okay. You also maybe this would be something for your conclusion, but there is a possibility, in the next year or 2 years or something like that, that the United States could effectively recognize North Korea as a nuclear power. So there's a possibility that South Korea's engagement with the rest of the region on could change. Basically, how it interacts with the rest of the region might change in the next several months and years. And so, what kind of effect might that have on how South Korea engages the region is something that you could consider.
Okay. I'll take a note of it.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing is, did you have a specific time frame that you would be looking at for this? Because you talk about basically the evolution, I think, of South Korea's evolving approach to security and diplomacy. Is there a time frame that you're looking at specifically for this?
Yes, so for that, I'm considering, like, from the present to the future approach, like 2030 could be the one, because this is 2025. Either, and
Okay.
it will consider from the 2015 to 2030, or maybe if you suggest that, should I, cut down the years from 2015 to,
Mhm.
2020 to 2040. So what you suggest, 2015 to 2030 or 2020 to 2040?
2030.
Yeah,
That's fine.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's
So
enough
2015 to
information.
2030, I am taking the timeline for that.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions?
I have asked the part. Yeah, so I've also jotted the point that this will approach into the three pillars as I have already mentioned. So, third
Mhm.
pillar I have mentioned about the democracy and human rights, which should be excluded. I must agree on the part. But what do you suggest about that? Because I don't see any relevance of the human rights and the democracy into the action, because it's more on the security aspect and it doesn't suit in the logic.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think Yoon Suk Yeol probably did engage the rest of the region on norms, so democracy specifically. Um, Park Geun-hye, when she was president, would also do that to an extent also, but I mean she's the only South Korean president that I can recall who really made human rights kind of a diplomatic talking point. That's not really something shared by uh, Moon Jae-in. I don't really think that the current government in Seoul is going to talk about it very much. So in terms of democracy and norms building, I mean, I guess there's always a possibility that that could emerge as a talking point, but I don't think that it is one for them at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you were to mention that there have been previous administrations that have engaged their communities on that topic, that would be fine. But I don't think that that's something that you're going to see a lot of
Yeah. Okay.
in the next 5 years.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
one last question that I have. So obviously, I'll consider into the key questions. That would be like I'll frame the key question and mold it according to your suggestions. And
Mm-hmm.
I have talked about the while investigating the Korean diplomacy. So it's also talks about the minilateral and the multilateral part. So do you think that the minilateral or the new multilateral and the new minilateral could also be considered in this paper? And so ASEAN or the other Quad or the rest AUKUS would also be considered into this play, or should I adjust when a few minilaterals and not the multilateral? Because ultimately it talks about the revolving around the 3 to 4 countries only.
Well, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of minilateral activity in the next several years
Yeah.
because that's not really a U.S. priority now, and they were a big part of that. Why that was happening at all? Um, as of so, if there are minilaterals that South Korea is pursuing, then sure, that's something you can bring up. But I don't. To my knowledge, it looks to me more like Lee Jae-myung is going to be focused more on bilateral than anything. I think they're focused mostly on interaction with the major powers impacting the region, meaning U.S., China, and Japan, and trying to ensure stability in each of those cases. But in terms of what they are going to do going forward on a mini-lateral basis, not a lot has caught my attention as of yet.
Okay.
Yeah, they're engaging the G7. I can show you some things here. There's a link here that involves what they are working on a for in the diplomatic sphere. It talks about engaging what they call the big four countries, the four major countries, which is the three that I already mentioned, plus Russia. And then there's G7 economic diplomacy and establishing a peace regime, things like that. And yeah, I don't know if mini laterals are really something that there's much work on at the moment. That could change, of course, but for the time being, that's what it looks like is
Okay.
laterals, bilateral. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for now, this is the only question that come to my mind. And
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Sure. We can talk more later
Yeah.
as questions come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So under the way this works is okay. We've had this meeting, and we're supposed to meet again around the fifth or sixth month
Mm-hmm.
of the fellowship to
Yeah.
discuss progress.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be June or July.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you think that in the meanwhile I can share the first draft of the proposal so that I can have your feedback on that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Then definitely I'll ping you up and will ask for your feedback. And till then,
Okay.
I'll work upon all those feedbacks and will revert the entire questions and will come as a introduction and the first chapter so that it will be more of a. So how do you think? Just one quick question that. Should it will be considered into word limit or it will be considered as more of a policy brief or how do you think it could be considered into?
The papers that we usually produce through these fellowships are usually longer. They're not really policy briefs, but more along the lines of the papers that we publish in our Issues and Insights series, which are, well, shorter. Let's say 6,000 words.
Ah,
Let's say
okay.
that. Yeah, approximately that.
Okay.
That seems like a lot, but people when the fellows start writing, they usually cover enough different topics and subjects that usually that amount of it goes by pretty quickly. I mean, you fill it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay. I'll definitely keep that in mind. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, okay. That's the only question. I'll start with those. And do you think that abstract would be needed, or it's just if from the introduction? Do you think that the issue will be covering?
An abstract.
Yeah. Is it required the
I mean,
abstract or the introduction? From the introduction, it is okay because the wholesome project that I have already shared is could be considered into abstract.
by the time of publication, you'd need an abstract or executive summary, but that's something to think about later.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's the only thing. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Rob, for all this
You're
guidance.
welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk soon.
Yeah. See ya.
See you.